Hello there, and welcome to the Calm Within the Storm podcast. All about the journey of finding contentment within the chaos that is mental health. Everything can change, even the world we live in. This episode will be all about therapy and seeking professional support. And today I'll be joined by Sarah Gregson. Together we'll be discussing the different types of support that are available to you and how each one can help you. And we'll also talk about the difficulties and anxieties surrounding seeking professional help. And I would like to offer a trigger warning with today's episode, because we will be touching on some sensitive topics such as self-harm, suicidal thoughts, and more. Please only listen if you feel comfortable in doing so. I will be sharing some supportive links and resources at the end of today's episode, so please use them if you think they might be helpful for you. So I'm joined by Sarah Gregson. Hello.
Hello.
And Sarah is a friend of mine. Sarah is a beautiful artist. Tell us about the stuff that you make.
I started doing animal portraits in lockdown, weirdly for my mental health. So I taught art for like a year before lockdown. And I was all doing like mindfulness and like, do art for your mental health. It's really good for you. And then I wasn't actually doing anything for myself. So lockdown came, I lost all my clients. And then I was just like, oh no. Like I just could feel like a cloud coming over. Yeah. So I started animal portraits, and then it was like, I started with Winnie.
Winnie is your dog?
Yeah, Winnie's my dog. And then I started with Winnie, and then friends are like, oh, can you mine? And it kind of like escalated to a point where it was like it was a good business.
Nice.
So I'm enjoying it.
Yeah? Oh, yeah. And it's beautiful. Your work is absolutely gorgeous as well.
Thank you.
In the grand scheme of things, we've not really known each other all that long, maybe a few years.
It's quality, but not quantity of time, Sam.
I think a lot of our relationship actually is, like, we've got quite an intense relationship.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because...
Not in a bad way. No. In a nice way.
Yeah.
It was like we met and then we're like, hi, we're friends.
And we've always been very, very open and honest with each other and been able to talk about everything. So for us, I think we've been a little comfort blanket for each other since the first day we met, and that's really nice. I think we were both going through a bit of a difficult patch in our lives, even just like in the moment when we met, and also kind of in the months following and the years following, and all for different reasons each time.
It was a journey.
Yes.
But I take out of it that we found each other.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Before we delve into the discussion, the proper discussion of today's topic, yes, I think I'd just like to point out that we aren't experts on this subject.
We're not doctors.
We're not doctors. We are just merely having an informal conversation about our own experiences.
Yep.
And discussing what other people, the journeys that they've been on, and that kind of thing.
I think in a way it's nice to get that kind of informal feedback though, because it's nice to hear from your peers, like their experience, rather than, kind of doctors prescribe things, and sometimes they do go straight to medication.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need to hear that others have been through it. That's all you need to hear a lot of the time, and that's hopefully what we're aiming to do today.
That's the aim of the game, folks.
So, to kick things off, I put a poll on social media.
I saw, it was very good.
I put many. So this is the first of many.
Okay.
And to get the discussion going, I asked people, have you ever sought professional support? So this could be anything from talking to your doctor, reaching out for therapy, registering for counselling, anything like that. And the options were yes, no, but I am/have considered it. No, I am too nervous to do so. No, I've not needed to yet. And yes came in at an astounding 81%.
What? That really surprises me.
Isn't that surprising? So this poll isn't just a mental health themed audience that this is aimed at.
This is on like your...
This is on my music page. So this is people of all ages, all backgrounds.
Wow.
And
that's
81...
really positive.
Yeah.
You would think that that's a negative thing, that everyone's needed help, but I think the fact that people have actually gone and sought out the help for themselves, that's amazing.
Exactly. And I was surprised as well that 0% said that no, they haven't because they've been too nervous to do so. Which is quite nice that so many people have, and so many people haven't felt worried about doing it.
That's so positive. Really, really positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Because I think taking that initial step is almost the hardest part of the whole process.
Yeah, I remember the hardest thing I did was like go on Google, find a counsellor, and actually ring them. And she was like, "So what's the matter?" And you're just like trying to explain through tears.
I don't know.
And it's like, I keep crying. I need help. But yeah, just doing that. And then, it was awful. Like the first time you go in, I don't even remember the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had counselling for 3 years now, but the first time you go in and you sit there opposite them and they're like, "So what's going on?" And you're like,
it's a blur.
yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
That's really positive that many people.
Absolutely. Because, and as well, it's the fear of judgment and opening up. Well, firstly, recognising that you need some extra support. And then secondly, taking that proactive approach to seeking it, knowing that you're going to have to open your heart and soul to a stranger.
It's so vulnerable.
It is.
Yeah, so vulnerable. But as Brené Brown says, vulnerability takes courage, and it really does. I mean, people say like, "Oh, be strong." That's the most courageous thing to do, but no way. Like actually telling people how you feel and being okay with like if you cry, then like it's just fine. I know it's a cliche, but it's like it is okay not to be okay.
Yeah. Okay, so before we move on to the next point, I just want to share all of the results from that first poll. So have you ever sought professional support? 81% said yes. We established that 0% had said, "No, I am too nervous to do so." We then had 10% for "No, but I am/have considered it." And 9% said, "No, I've not needed to or not needed to yet." So speaking of the people who have sought professional help, this question was more aimed at them. And I asked, when you sought professional help, what type of support did you seek and why? And I gave a few different options and also gave space if people wanted to write other options. So I gave the options of counselling and therapy, virtual support, for example, apps and helplines, medication, mental health care unit, multiple choices, so for example if someone wanted medication and therapy, and also the option of other. And so the results were 52% said counselling and therapy was the first thing that they wanted to go in for. 5% requested virtual support, 5% medication, 0 mental health care unit, 38% said multiple choices, and 0% said other. So I then had a look at the responses of the multiple choices, so the people who had gone in for 2 different things, or 3 different things, or 4, all of them. And that changed the poll quite a lot, actually, if you factored in the people who chose counselling and added that to the original percentage. So then the results became 61% for counselling and therapy, 4% for virtual support, 21% for medication, which tells me that people aren't just asking for medication in the first place.
I would just presume that people would go straight to medication, just because if you go to your GP, I remember when I went, I was just crying at the GP and he was like, "Are you depressed? Do you want some medication?" I was like, first of all, I didn't want to go down the medication route. I am now. I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, that's really positive that people want to actually talk about it first.
Yeah, absolutely. The request for a mental health care unit did go up to 7%, but that tells me that people are considering this alongside other options and not looking specifically as that being their primary option. The multiple choices then became 7%. That was unspecified people, basically, who didn't give the other options, and other stayed still at 0%. So we had a few comments as well on this question, and one person said their first instance was with a telephone consultation with the Samaritans.
Gosh.
Probably quite a few of us forget that helplines like that do exist. Because if you feel panicked or you feel low or anything impactful with your mood, your instinct is to go to your doctor. And I think a lot of people forget that there are helplines and there are apps.
Because the doctors take like 2 weeks, don't they? And it's nice to know that there are things there that are instant. I mean, I always thought the Samaritans were if you were questioning ending your own life. I thought that was like purely what they're for. So it's nice to know that they do have mental health support as well as that.
someone said, which is similar to what you just mentioned, they were convinced into medication by their GP because the wait for mental health support was, quote, too long and not worth it.
Ugh.
Too long and not worth it is not what you want to hear when you are in a place where you don't even know if tomorrow you're going to be okay, never mind 6 months down the line. And
that's shocking.
If the help is even going to be worth it in the first place. Like, no one should have to hear that.
That's so bad.
Someone else said they chose counselling for many reasons because they were in a bad place and medication wasn't working.
Oh,
so
okay, so they'd already tried it.
So obviously they've already been in a position where they've tried the medication and they've then gone to look for something else. And then we had a final comment from someone who they chose to look for multiple options of support. And they listed that they had depression, anxiety, self-harming, suicidal ideation and eating disorders.
Oh, yikes.
And they obviously were in a position where they just didn't know what they wanted, they didn't know what would help, but they were just in that position where you don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah, that's really hard because unless you're sectioned in that state, it is up to you to get the help and support, unless you're obviously your family can intervene. I mean, I work at a mental health hospital and these ladies are self-harming and like issues like that. I mean, a lot of them have psychosis as well, but they get like sectioned in the middle of the night and are taken away like 2 hours from their family, but at least they're in a place that is supportive and they're kind of with doctors that can prescribe them the right route and stuff. Yeah. Like a nurturing environment rather than just being like, what do I do?
Yeah, well that's it. And I think also that in itself is terrifying for someone who is in that position without being in that location. You know, if you're feeling all of those things and you need help, but you're scared to ask for it because of the fear that you're going to be taken away or something like that. Because, like, that was a big thing for me. I was so worried about speaking up about things.
Because when people imagine, like, mental health, like, rehab centres and stuff, they just imagine, like, padded cells. You just see stuff like Shutter Island and you think that's what it's going to be like. But, I mean, the place I work at is just the complete opposite of that. It's just so lovely and, like, nourishing and nice. I mean, obviously people still have their bad times there, but it's just lovely to know that there are places like that.
Yeah, that's nice to know. That's nice to know, because you're right, you have all of these visions of what you see on TV or what you hear about in horror stories, and you think that sort of digs itself down into the, you know, your thoughts, and you think, I don't want to open up about this. Like, this is a terrifying prospect.
Yeah, I think the thing for me with being in the mental health hospital and like getting to know the women is that they're humans. Yeah. They all talk about their kids and their families, and it's like, that could be me. So it's, it's quite humbling in a way.
And it's nice also to hear about your experience with it and almost break down that barrier of perception of what you think it is. In your head, you build it up to be something so dramatic and terrible. And it's worth also talking about all of the different options that people have chosen here. So not just the mental health care units, but also medication. Let's start with medication. Yeah. Because again, I think similarly to mental health care units, there's almost that fear surrounding medication of, what if I get too dependent on it? Or what if I have side effects? Like, what if I turn into a different person when I'm on the tablets?
Yeah, that was one of my biggest fears. So I've been having counselling for 3 years. I mean, I've suffered with anxiety, like, if I'm honest, like all my life. Like, I've always been a big crier and just always been really, really highly sensitive, which is, it's one of my strengths because I can like have conversations like this, but it's also like something that like I do struggle with. So it's only this year that I've decided to go on medication, purely because of, like you said, like I was worried that if it's going to take away those lows, I worried that it'd take away the highs, because I feel things so like vividly, like I feel like a rainbow of emotions, and then like what if it's just like gives me like 2 colours of emotions? And I'm like, I didn't want to do that. So I said to the doctor on the phone, I was like, I don't want to feel like a zombie. Like, I just want there to be like a little bit of, because I have like extreme highs and extreme lows. Like, my grandma had bipolar, so I have to be really careful because it could be hereditary. So I think I have something called cyclothymia.
Yeah, I think we've maybe talked about this.
It's basically like really mild bipolar. So I will have like 3 months where I feel completely normal. So that's sort of like autumn time. Then 3 months of like hyperness where like, you know, I'll do things like start a podcast, I'll start like 5 businesses at once. And this isn't even exaggeration. It's just, that's just what I do. And then I crash. Yeah. And I crash for like 3-4 months of just like, so I started counselling to kind of deal with that. Yeah. And then this year it was so extreme that I was just like, I need extra help. So I booked an appointment with the GP because I remember going to a counselling session once and I said to her, I was like, I don't know how much longer I can feel like this. Yeah. And it wasn't that I ever thought about ending my own life, but it's like, I can't feel like this anymore.
Unbearable. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just like, I was like crying my eyes out. Like she could just see the pain in me, and she was like, I think like I can't. She was like, I can't tell you what to do, but I'd recommend that you go and talk to your GP. So she recommended me a GP actually. The first step was obviously ringing up the GP, which I was terrified about, and then it was having the phone appointment where you're explaining everything.
And I think phone appointments terrifying as well, since the pandemic, with everything being on the phone, I think that also makes things so much harder because with it being so impersonal, you almost feel like you're on borrowed time where you're just like, I need to rush and tell him the main bits and that's it.
Yeah, but the brilliant thing about her was that I didn't feel rushed. Like even if I tried to like skip past something, she was like, okay, let's go back to that. Yeah, nice. And like, what's your family situation and all this? Like she wanted like the full picture, which was amazing. So she recommended that I start sertraline 50 milligrams, which is the serotonin reuptake. Okay. So it basically like brings up your happy hormones. And I said to her like on the phone, I was like, I don't want to feel like a zombie, all of this. She was like, first of all, I'll prescribe it you. If you don't want to take it, don't take it.
Nice.
So there's never that pressure. And then I remember coming off the phone and just like hugging Cal, my husband, and it's nice to like have him in it with me because a lot of the time, I mean, I know I spoke to you about this, like I push him away and I blame a lot of it on him because it's easier, as awful as it sounds, it's easier to blame someone else rather than looking inward. Yeah. So I've like really let him come on the journey with me. So when I took the first tablet, like I made him sit on the sofa with me and like I was crying my eyes out because I've just like, it felt like I was accepting defeat. I was just like, I can't cope with this on my own, so I need help. Yeah. I think in a way, throughout the whole of this, I've been very stubborn with my mental health. Yeah. So I've always been like, oh, I can like take on the world with it. And actually allowing people to come in, like as soon as I finished on the phone to the GP, I rang my mum. I was like, just let you know, I've had this talk going on medication. My mum's been in the NHS for 40 years. So she was nervous about it. Like she used to work in the mental health sector. And I thought she was going to be angry that I went on medication.
Really?
Yeah. But she said, I'm so proud of you. Wow. And I was like,
I would instantly burst into tears.
Yeah, I did. Happened. And it was just like amazing because then I actually saw from an outsider's point of view like what I was doing. Yeah. I think it's that the vulnerability takes courage thing again. Like it's brave that I've gone on it, and I'm not saying I'm going to be on it for a lifetime, but it just means that when I do come to the really bad times, my doctor said if you're on a bike, like going from statics and then going up a hill, if you are on meds, when the hard times come, it's like you've just like taken a run up to that hill. And she was like, it will just be easier to get up next like bad part. She was like, I'm not saying that won't come, but it will just be like you're already like halfway back to your normal self. Yeah. I'm okay on it so far. I'm having weird dreams. Are you? My dreams are so intense. Like every morning I wake up, I was like, am I okay?
Like nightmares or just weird dreams?
Weird, like thriller dreams.
Wow.
Yeah, so I might start writing them down and yeah, they're just weird. And I screamed in my sleep for the first time ever the other night.
Oh my goodness. But aside from that, do you feel comfortable being on the tablet? Yeah, do you feel like it's made a difference?
Yeah, I think so. I feel calm.
That's good.
I feel very like my authentic self, which is nice.
Nice.
It feels just like
that's important.
Steady. Yeah, and I think my brain feels quieter. But then I've still got room to like think of all like my creative ideas and stuff.
Perfect.
I'm just not worrying as much. Nice. And it's really nice. It feels like my brain's gone on holiday. Yeah. And I thought my personality would be completely different, but I think it's just like me, but then just a bit better.
Yeah, that's nice. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a good experience because I was worried about side effects as well. I haven't had any other than the weird dreams, which apparently is a side effect.
Ooh. So moving on from medication, I feel like counselling and therapy is going to be a massive one that we can talk about. So I would just like to touch upon virtual support. So helplines like the Samaritans, which we just briefly touched on, and apps. In the episode with Mark Gallagher, we talked about Headspace.
Oh yeah, I love Headspace.
Things like that. So my GP recommended that I went on to something called SilverCloud, which
I've not heard of that.
For me at the time, I think it's probably very, very beneficial if you are in need of that particular support. But for what I was looking for at the time, it wasn't right. And I'll probably touch on this in a little bit more depth shortly. But I think this is where, for me, I benefit most from a personal and direct relationship. If I'm in need of support, like with you, I get so much help from you just because I can talk. And having someone who just, even if you don't say anything, you listen. That is what I need. And I get very, very little benefit from sitting and reading about things.
And I think just on that point of listening, it's so important for friends and family to just listen. Like, I remember for ages, my mum was, bless her heart, like because she's in the NHS, she wants to fix me. But now, since she's retired, she's so much better at just listening and absorbing the problem and knowing that, like, I'm an adult and I will come to a solution and I'll ask her advice if I need to. But, you know, she always used to say, like, I'm not okay if you're not okay. And it's so much pressure.
I know. And Mason, so my partner, he always called himself a fixer as well. And now, I think as we've been on this journey together, he's realised that he needs to be a listener.
Yeah.
And sometimes problems can't be fixed. They just need to be listened to. There's sometimes that added pressure of, what if I can't fix it? And all you can really do is just kind of learn to navigate it. Yeah. And that, you know, just ride the wave.
Yeah. Wrap your arms around the person and just feel with them, or let them feel, I think is so important. Just holding space for someone, just to be there. And I think I am a good listener because people open up to me. I think we went on like our first walk together. You were spilling your heart out to me. And I was like, this is lovely. But I'm like, maybe is Sam like this for everyone? Or is it just me? And I found it with, like, I run art sessions and the staff will like just sit down and be like, oh, I've had such a hard week. I'm doing this, that. And I'm like, And then one of them was like, you're really easy to talk to. I was like, thank you.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, so I think like at some point I'll probably do like my counselling qualifications and maybe bring that into my life as well. So many strings to my bow.
I guess in terms of having someone to listen, that's what helplines are there for, because when your GP is shut in an evening, shut at a weekend, you've got a 6-month waiting list for the support you need. A helpline is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And I think that's probably the hardest time for people is the evening and weekends, because there's that pressure to socialise. Yeah. And if you don't have anyone, it's the time when you're going to feel loneliest. And then your dark thoughts are kind of going to start coming.
Absolutely. And sometimes even if you don't know someone, just having someone to talk to.
Yeah. Sometimes in a way it's better not knowing them, because there's not really any interest in it for them. Like, it's the unbiased opinions, isn't it? They don't know you. I think things like Headspace is obviously a great place to start for like meditation and just like chilling. But like apps like BetterHelp, you can get therapists from all around the world. So you don't have the problem of, you know, they're only being available at certain times, because you could get a therapist in America. Yeah. And they would be available there at night time, and you can message. So some people obviously don't like to have like eye contact. You can just message them, you can phone call. I'm actually part of a development for a mental health app. My friend Adam started an app called Mind Amigo. It's sort of like Headspace in a way of the thing is you become your own therapist. So he's sort of talking you through like CBT and ACT and like all the kind of types of therapies. And you can either choose a male voice or a female voice. So I've like done the voiceover for it, which is quite cool. Because a lot of, you know, if maybe you're a guy and you had issues with your dad, so you don't want a male voice. So there's a lot of things, because that's what I said. I was like, like I wouldn't necessarily want a male counsellor. So that's pretty cool. So there is a lot of stuff out there. And even just getting something like Calm. Yeah. Even just for like the sleep stories and stuff are really good.
Yeah, very true. It's accessible all the time. making it into your routine is also a hard part, because if you've been almost prescribed the use of an app,
you just automatically don't want to do it.
Yeah, that's it. You have to almost want to do it, and you have to find the interest in finding the right one for you, because some will work for you, some won't work for you. And if you are in a position where you need to make this as part of your routine, you almost go, I don't want to do that. But if you find something that you enjoy doing, then you won't think twice about it being part of your day.
Yeah, it's weird that we repel things that we know are going to be good for us. It's like me going to the gym, I'm like, ugh. Yeah, meditation, I really want to do it. I really want to get into the habit. But actually, when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, duvet. So, I don't know. But I guess with it being an app, it's good because we're used to being on our phones.
Yeah.
I got an app, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called like Dailyo maybe. But I wanted to track my mood because of those like highs and lows. But you just track, there's like a set of faces and you just pick the face that reflects the mood. And you can add notes and stuff. So then you can just see like how your month's gone.
Yeah.
So I originally did it in a diary and I was going to like colour code every day. And my counsellor was like, you're not doing it, so why aren't you doing it? And I was like, I guess it's too much effort.
Yeah.
It's a bit faffy. So she recommended getting an app. If you get into the routine of doing that, you might be able to add another thing. Yeah. It's just little things at a time. Yeah. Rather than just going all in on, wanting to do like an hour of meditation a day. Yeah. Like it's just not going to happen. Small changes in little chunks. Yeah. My mum always said, how do you eat an elephant? You chop it up into little pieces. I mean, I don't eat animals, but had to get the veganism in there somewhere.
Okay, so the big one that I guess me and you both have a lot of experience with, especially, is counselling and therapy. Yeah. And obviously, judging by our poll, a lot of other people have a wider experience with counselling and therapy as well. So there are different types, and again, it's similar to the app. It's finding the right one to suit you, because CBT might not work for you, and then you feel like you've failed and nothing can help. But actually, it's just that you haven't found either the right person or the right method.
Yeah. Oh, completely. It's sort of, as weird as it sounds, it's sort of like you need to date your counsellors first, because
like
not
that.
in that way, but actually realising that they're not for everyone. We don't like all the people we meet. It may be that even like things like their accent affects how you understand them and stuff like that. I mean, I was quite lucky with mine that I like clicked with her straight away. I know my brother said he tried BetterHelp and he went through a few different ones. My friend is on it as well. I think she tried like 8 different ones before she actually settled on one. Yeah, and they all kind of specialise in different things. You can kind of get like psychotherapists, psychologists. Do they have a degree? Do they not? Does it matter to you? Or is it good enough just to say to your friend, can we go for a walk? Yeah. And let's talk. Because not everyone can afford it, and not everyone can afford the time to wait on the NHS. Yeah. So I pay privately, so I only go once a month. If you can't afford it, then obviously the NHS have some great options.
And especially now with the pandemic, things have gone from being, as we mentioned earlier, like an in-person thing to either a virtual thing, like a phone call. Yeah. Because I started having counselling during the pandemic, and that was over the phone. And for me, like I mentioned, I don't value it as much without that personal connection.
Because even just someone looking at you is enough, because a lot of like counsellors don't talk a lot. So they literally, like, even just saying that, like, okay. So knowing they're absorbing it and taking in, basically how counselling works is talking therapy, which is what I have, is they take what you say and just repeat it back to you. So if you say, like, I'm worthless, they say, are you worthless? Once saw a visual of counselling and therapy, and it was like, you come with, like, 3 balls of wool all knotted together, and the therapist sits there and kind of like helps you unravel them. Yeah. So in the end, you left with 3 balls of wool, and you're like, oh, cool. So they don't necessarily add anything to it. They kind of help you figure it out, and it's teamwork. They can't. I'm imagining the counsellors sat here, by the way. I'm just like they can't do it without you, because you need to bring it.
But sometimes having your words fed back to you are what proves to be the biggest help, because you might not know what you want or what you're feeling or anything, but if you just spout out everything that's in your thoughts and they pick up on one thing that you've said and say that back to you, suddenly that resonates with you, and you know, where you were just rambling, suddenly you can concentrate on this one important point, and that proves super helpful in just understanding how your brain works. Like,
and it might be something that you didn't even realize that you've said, and it's not that they're being like, oh, you said that, and then they're really trying to help you figure out where you are, which is just back to the point of the screens. I think I would struggle on a phone, because unless they're going you don't know that they're not like looking at something on Google. I mean, I think I would even struggle on Zoom, just because there's that little delay. And so I think personally face-to-face works for me. I have heard of a really cool therapy, I don't know what type, walking therapy, which is, I guess, is what we do.
I guess so.
Like when we go for dog walks, we just like, because you're walking next to the person, there's not the pressure of eye contact, which I don't mind, but some people do, and apparently, especially males, they really struggle with eye contact because they sometimes feel like they're being like backed into a corner. There's a lot of science that's gone into conversations in the car, so especially trying to communicate with teenagers. If you were like in the car with your teenager, they're supposed to actually open up to you more than they would face to face, you know, across the kitchen table, like, what did you do last night? So I think walking therapy is really beneficial, and it's something that if I do go down the counselling route, I think I'll do that, just like go for walks with people instead of sitting in that very like clinical setting, because some people, it just makes some people feel very self-conscious and awkward. So that's definitely another option for people. I'm sure there'll be some walking therapists around. It's definitely getting more popular.
So moving on, I would like to go back to another poll that I asked the audience.
Oh, love it.
And I asked this time, how straightforward did you find it to access the type of support that you wanted? And the options were very straightforward, fairly difficult, and very difficult. So very straightforward came in at 26%, which is quite low. Fairly straightforward was the highest, which was 48%, so that's still quite positive. Fairly difficult and very difficult both came in at 13%. So there is still a bit of a way to go. I mean, it's great that people are being able to access things, but the process of receiving that help, I think, still has a lot of improvements that needs to be made.
I think the waiting times are probably a lot to do with that. It is going to be difficult if you're waiting 6 months for a counselling appointment. Have you had any comments on that?
So speaking of the waiting times, we've had one person say, I've been waiting 5 years on different lists, and others seem to get help within weeks. That's heartbreaking.
You know, as awful as it sounds, if you don't say you are thinking of committing suicide, you're not put to the top of the list.
Well, we've had another similar vibe, I suppose, but and I completely get where you're coming from. I completely get where you're coming from. We've had somebody else say, at the time, I was self-harming, but wasn't deemed enough of a risk for support. And they followed it up by saying, the nurse also noted, quote, that way is quite dangerous. Don't do it that way. So they're not dangerous enough to get support.
Don't do it this way.
Yeah, isn't that absolutely baffling? Like, you might be putting yourself in more danger by doing it that way, but you're not quite dangerous enough yet to be helped. What?
They might be in a week. Like, can you stop it at this stage rather than having to,
it's awful.
It's horrible.
I can't even imagine hearing that. So I had an experience where the first time I decided to go for counselling, I think I was 16. I was really quite young, and I'd really struggled with my mental health a lot. And so I was about 11 when I first started self-harming.
Really? I didn't know that you did that.
Well, this is the thing. I've never talked about it. And I only very, very recently opened up about these things. Maybe in the past couple of years. So nobody knew. This is a secret that was just mine, because I didn't know how to cope with things. I didn't know anything. I didn't even know that support was available at that age, because it's not something that's spoken about with children.
No. Children
are not aware of counselling, therapy, medication, mental health care units. You don't know that. And so when I was 16, I just started college at this point, and I was still really, really struggling. And I was on my college website and came across in the student portal menu, there was an option for counselling.
Oh, cool.
And by this point, obviously, I knew what that was.
Yeah.
And so I looked into it, thinking, I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if I could talk to someone about this. This is too hurtful. And eventually plucked up the courage. I must have written this email about 10 times, deleted it, wrote it again, deleted it.
Horrible sending that first email or the phone call.
It took me weeks. And eventually plucked up the courage to do it. And the lady was a dream. She was so considerate. And I was
good, especially for your first experience.
Exactly. I was so embarrassed though. At college, I was like, what if people see me? What if people find out? What if people judge me? I've got no friends. All of this.
Such a
it was horrifying.
High pressure time as well, isn't it?
And the counsellor's room was upstairs, so you had to go up these stairs to get to this office. And I had, say my appointment was at 2:00, for example. I got there about 1. And I was waiting at the bottom of the stairs, like playing on my phone, waiting because people were walking past these stairs. And I was like, I don't want anybody to know that I'm there. And then I'd get too flustered because I was like, people aren't leaving, people are eating their lunch on the stairs, what do I do? And I'd cry in the bathroom for half an hour, and then I'd go back and I just couldn't bring myself to do it.
They've probably got no idea what's up those stairs.
Exactly, this is it. I was so caught up in my own head that I was just a mess by the time I got there. And when I finally found a point of which no one was there, I sprinted up those stairs and I sat in the waiting room ready to go in, and I nearly fainted about 10 times. I was like this. I was shaking like a leaf. I was such a mess. And the moment she opened the door and called me in, I just cried and cried. I don't even think I said a word for the entire hour. I just cried, and I could, when you're crying that much that you're like,
You probably needed that release though, didn't you?
Couldn't even speak. Well, that's it. And I'd never been in a position where somebody wanted to listen to me or somebody wanted to help me. Not that people wouldn't have wanted to, I just hadn't given anyone the opportunity. But I pursued the counselling at my college for the entire duration that I was there, and that really helped me.
Like 2 years?
Yeah. And then after I finished college, so obviously in college that was all free and available to you at all times. Once I left college, I found a couple of years later I was still struggling. So I then went to my GP. And again, it took me all the courage in the world, because I'd gone from having this wonderful woman that I had got to know, and that kind of thing. You don't have
to explain the like backstory, do you, anymore? Yeah,
exactly. And I still hadn't told anybody else by this point, so nobody else knew. And I went and booked this GP appointment, and I got there and I sat down and I said, I think I need help. And I kid you not, the doctor rolled back in his chair and went, but you look okay to me. I didn't know what to say. And I left that room and I sat in my car in the car park and I cried for about 15 minutes before I could even drive away.
They always say, and I think it's so important, and I may even look to the camera to do this, please check in on your smiliest friend.
Yes.
Because, we are very positive people, aren't we? We are, the smiliest people you'll meet. Yeah, we've both had struggles. Yeah. Just because you look okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I could be crying and then I can put makeup on and I can look fine. Yeah. It's just a mask, isn't it?
Well, that's it. And especially because we've got quite bouncy personalities as well. And when you're a creative person, you're very much like that. You're doing one thing, you're moving on to the next. You've always got something to keep you busy. You're always kind of really jolly and absorbed in something. But actually, the moment that all of that stops,
you're just left with yourself.
Yeah. I can go from being 100 to 0 within an instant. Yeah. And it's terrifying.
Yeah. But in a way, I think that bouncy personality and the kind of trying to keep yourself busy is sort of almost contemplating for the I don't want to be left alone with my own thoughts. I do not feel okay, so I'm trying to distract myself. And I think now I've definitely learned to just sort of sit with those feelings and not try to, blame Cal for something that he's done that may have made me feel a certain way. Actually kind of take ownership of it and be like, okay, yeah, I do feel like that. And just allowing yourself, I think, just to feel rubbish. Because I'm self-employed, the other day I just cancelled work for the day. I was like, yeah, I'm not in a good headspace today. Because I teach art and I'm with vulnerable people. It's I can't give myself to you if I can't. There's nothing to give.
If you don't have a regular employment, it's a million times harder,
Yeah.
because if it's the same with gigging, you know,
Yeah,
if you wake up and you've
completely.
got zero energy and all you've done today is cry, and you don't want to talk to anyone, you don't have the energy to even like get out of bed, and yet you've got to go and perform a gig in a rowdy bar and have everybody up singing and dancing with a big smile on your face, it's an impossible task.
Yeah.
It really can feel it.
I think my biggest thing, so I'm 30 in March, I know I look so young. My biggest thing is to try be as authentic as possible and not try to be like, hey everyone, and just kind of let people in. I know you mentioned when we talk about counselling that you'd never given anyone that chance to listen. And I think it's so important, because I'm always, you know, the first one to be like, if you will say like, how are you? I'll be like, yeah, fine, how are you?
Yeah.
Like, I always want to help other people, and actually just being authentic, and, you know, if you need a day off, if you need to just chill for a bit, and sometimes just even being quiet. I've found definitely with Cal now, I have times where I am just quiet.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a really nice, healthy balance, where I think I used to just be like, blah, 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 like talking at him. And he's not a big talker at all. And I think I was trying to, you know, do that like distracting thing with myself. It's weird, isn't it? It would be lovely if we could see inside people's brains.
Yeah. Wouldn't it just? I know.
Yeah, and just like, this is what I'm saying, but this is what I'm feeling, would be
Yeah.
really nice and very
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, just working on that authenticity is really important.
And that's a big pressure, I think, as well with social media,
Mm.
because you can be authentic with who you are with your friends in person, and your friends will know, oh, she's having a bit of a low day today, we'll pick her up in a way that we know how to.
Yeah.
But on social media, you find that everyone puts the best of their life on all the time. And if you put the low point of your life, then you fear that it's deemed attention seeking. How do you break that mold of, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean in terms of social media. So I have my personal account, and then I've got my business account, and I find it so much easier to be myself on my business account and actually share things.
I think I've
don't
got
know
a bit
why.
like this. I think I've got a little bit like this myself, actually. And I think maybe because you have people's loyalty in your brand, and they, you know,
because your brand, like your brand's so authentic to you, that you're like, okay, well, this is my soul. Maybe what I was portraying on my personal Instagram wasn't me at all, and it was me trying to be like, take the nice selfies and all that nonsense.
You know, you've got a loyal, I don't want to say fan base, but
just like a supportive network of people that appreciate you for your authentic self. And I found definitely on that, the more I share about my mental health, the more it's helping people. And I know people are saying that it's helped me to either go to the GP or like seek help in any way, even if it's just telling their partner that they're not okay. And it can seem scary, but I think in a way it's like the bravest thing that I've ever done is like just be me. And it's the easiest thing as well, because it's so hard to like keep up appearances of like, oh yes, I've got my shit together. And like when I worked in advertising, I think that's what I did. I was just trying to like yes, I live in Cheshire, I work in advertising, you know, it's so great. And it all crumbled under me. So it's just easy, and I feel like there's just like, I'm like, ugh. And like my relationships are so much better because of it.
I found it similar with my music. So when I was writing in my mailing list, only the past couple of years, so like when I lost my dad, I talked about it in my mailing list and was like, I'm sorry, I can't do much this month because I'm struggling, or this is where I'm up to now, or whatever. And actually just having that platform where I could just go, this is what's happening to me in real life. I'm sorry I'm not making music right now. For the first time in like the 10 years that I've owned my mailing list, I actually had people replying to my emails saying, I've been through this as well. Hearing your stories really helped me. And I had so many people, I think for one email, I had like 10 people just say that they were really happy to have read it because they felt similar things.
Yeah, that's so lovely. I think at the end of the day, like, we're all humans and we need connection. We need to connect to each other. We need to sort of come onto the same level and empathise with each other, because we're not all just our own little thing. I know it can feel like, you know, we're on the Truman Show and everyone's against us and everyone's actors, but there's always something I think you can connect with someone on. And even if, like, God forbid, it is grief. Everyone's been through that, even if it's just a pet. Hopefully it won't be a parent for me for a very long time, but you know, even like we've connected over like the loss of, your dad. I mean, I could relate partially to like the loss of my granddad, and I think it's beautiful, and you have to kind of take like the beauty that's created from those dark times, because your dad wouldn't want you to sit there in a dark room and cry all day. I mean, I know sometimes you do, obviously, but that's fine. So we just have to kind of try and live for those people as well, and like live for these people that maybe that person that did read you on mailing list was sat in the dark room just scrolling through their phone, and they saw that someone that they see is so like beautiful and like colourful personality is struggling too. And I think it's just that like connection is really important, and like hopefully by like sharing our stories with the people that watch this and listen to this, like it will just kind of make them feel closer to us and like closer to themselves as well in a way, which is the hope.
So, referring back to the initial process of getting yourself signed up for a counsellor or reaching out for therapy, the next question that I asked the audience was this. If you chose the counselling/therapy route, did you have a wait time between your initial inquiry and receiving the support? And the options were, no, it was a quick process. Yes, a 1 to 4 week wait. Yes, a 1 to 2 month wait. And yes, a 6 month plus wait.
Wow.
And I say unsurprisingly, it should be quite a shock, but it really isn't. That the highest percentage came at, yes, a 6 month plus wait. And that came in at 45% of the audience. Next was, it was a quick process, was 32%. Okay. Which is still actually
that's quite positive.
And it's obviously worth looking at then what route did they go down, what was the scenario, because obviously some things are easier to treat than others and that kind of thing. A 1 to 4 week wait came in at 18%, and a 1 to 2 month wait came in at only 5%. So the way this is looking, it's either a very quick process or it's a very long process.
And I wonder if that's if you go private or NHS.
Yeah, we have had a couple of people saying that they ended up going private because the NHS was too slow.
Yeah.
So when I spoke just about when I went to the doctors the first time and almost was rejected in a way. Following this, I have 2 more experiences with going to the GP for different reasons. One was obviously the loss of my dad, which I'll talk about because that was more recent.
Yeah.
But prior to that was back in about 2018, and I was having a load of intimate trouble, I suppose, in sexual health. And this was a very niche market, it seems.
Okay.
So I went in and I was like, I want to be able to talk to someone about something. And they told me that for this topic, it was a 6 to 12 month wait. If I wanted a female counsellor, obviously because this being like quite an intimate topic. But if I wanted a male counsellor, it was a much quicker process, which is strange.
Yeah.
And so in the end, I ended up going with a male. And I didn't want to. I reluctantly, because I didn't want to talk about these things with someone who didn't understand. But luckily, he ended up being very, very lovely and very considerate. But I think I still would have preferred a female. Because in terms of hormones and libido and that kind of thing, a man isn't quite on the same wavelength as a female. And that, you know, I'm not saying that out of discrimination. I'm saying that just in general, I think men's libidos tend to be higher. They don't have the same hormones that we do. They don't have the same cycle. Everything like that.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into a woman's.
Yeah, and that was what a lot of it was. It was all kind of relating to my cycle and how that had impacted my body, and then how that had impacted my sexual health. And there was a lot of things that had been going on for about 6 years.
Wow.
I think it stemmed probably from contraceptive medication that I was prescribed, and it all just went bonkers and everything went wrong.
That's a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other podcast.
Oh my.
But it was the fact that this was a very, very awkward thing to talk about, and to be told you might have to wait a year. That's a long time to deal with problems in your body, in your physical health. You know, if you broke an arm, you wouldn't wait 12 months to have a cast.
Especially like it's starting to affect, if it's affecting your relationship, if it's like an intimate thing. And
exactly. And then the next occasion, which I don't want to keep ranting, but this is the most recent one, and this was obviously when I lost my dad. And I lost my dad in the April of 2020, which was in the pandemic. And I immediately phoned the doctor because by this point I was like, I've had some experience of either counsellor in college. I know this is what I need right now.
Yeah.
I was in a horrendous place. And I phoned the doctor and they said, okay, you've only just lost your dad. It's too soon. It's too soon was what they told me, right? Quote. So they said, we'll phone you back next week and check in that you're doing okay, and then we'll figure out where to go from there. And I had this next call, and I was like, I still want counselling. I know I want counselling. You should have listened the first time. I know I want this. And they were like, okay, well, we're going to put you on this app, which was the Silver Cloud app that I mentioned earlier, where I said it wasn't right for me. And this was why. Because I just lost my dad. None of my friends have lost their parents. I'm in a pandemic where I can't even leave my house. I live on my own in a room that doesn't even have a garden or anything like that.
You're still at the flat then?
I was completely on my own, having almost become half orphan, you know? That's all I could, and I had no one to talk to, nothing. And I was in such a bad place, and they just sent me to an app. And I read this app and it was like, feeling down can be because you are overworked or you. And
so it wasn't even a bereavement specialist app?
No, it wasn't. On the app, you had a chat option and they said you'd be assigned someone on this chat, which I thought when they put me on this app, I thought maybe this was them assigning me a counsellor once I complete the app and they can see then my progress. So I did all of this app like immediately and I was sending messages and messages in this chat with no response. And it was 4 months later, 4 or 5 months, it was August, when I then got a message on this app that said, thank you for completing it. And I was like, does that mean I can now go into my counselling? And they were like, no, we aren't a counsellor, we are just like an overviewer of your progress.
What?
So I phoned the doctors again, and I just said, look, it's been however many months now, I need support. And they said, okay, well, we don't offer bereavement counselling, so you'll have to phone a charity. I was like, why didn't you tell me that in the first place? So then I had another wait to then phone someone else.
Yeah.
Whilst in the meantime, they said, we'll prescribe you CBT counselling, which was then over the phone. And that wasn't, again, it wasn't what I needed.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the right, because it's more like facing your fears and stuff like that.
I didn't need behavioural therapy.
No.
I needed bereavement therapy.
Yeah.
Luckily, when I phoned this charity, I was in this point where I was like, I don't even know what to do. Do I phone them? Is it a waste of time? Am I going to be messed around for another year? And I phoned them, and the next day they phoned and had like an hour-long call with me. Lovely conversation. And they said there is a wait for counselling sessions of, I think it was like 3 months or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. I just need something.
Just put me on the waiting list.
Yeah. And they phoned me every week and had like an hour-long conversation with me each time. And it wasn't like robotic, it wasn't checking boxes. It was a woman who'd also lost her parents, who lost siblings, who was talking to me because she knew how it felt.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then a few weeks later, they had a place for a group counselling session and I joined onto that. So luckily something became available prior to the 3 months wait. And from there, I was flying. It was great. It was the best thing.
Amazing. It's probably nice to connect with other people that are grieving as well.
It was difficult.
It
was very, very difficult, especially because this was like in the pandemic, so it was all over Zoom. And when you can just see blurred faces, that's so strange. Like when you just want to be able to talk to someone and you've got all of these strangers looking at you,
don't know when
they don't know you.
Yeah, when's the time that you can kind of go in, or do you put your hand up?
But
I bet.
Best thing I've done.
Oh, good.
We got there eventually, but from my
It's a struggle.
experience, my mental health journey in like the GP world has not been plain sailing. It's not been easy. But I know there are others who have it very, very easy. Like I know, so Mason has sought help before, and his process was very, very quick and easy and effortless.
Weird. Interesting.
Maybe I'm just difficult. But I did ask people, have you noticed an improvement in your mental health after seeking professional support?
Okay.
So now I can firmly say that I have massively benefited as a result of the group bereavement therapy. That was exactly what I needed. And you can say that you've benefited from
massively,
your medication.
And the counselling as well.
Yeah. We had 38% of people said yes, they saw a big improvement.
That's great.
Which is really, really positive. Similarly, 29% of people said they saw a small improvement.
Okay.
19% said it's too soon to say or I'm still undergoing treatment. But 14% said no, things are unchanged or worse. And this, I think, goes back to what we were saying earlier about are they on the right path and are they with the right person?
Yeah. And in a way as well, you may feel worse before you feel better, especially with medication. And sometimes, obviously, counselling, you're talking about stuff that you may have hidden for like 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's bringing up old wounds. You're going to probably feel worse before you feel better. So I think that knocks people's confidence with it. Yeah. And again, you may not find the right counsellor. It may be that talking therapy is not right for you and you need like CBT or a different type of therapy, but it doesn't mean that you can't be cured.
Don't blame yourself if you aren't recovering at the rate that you were hoping to, or your mood isn't lifting as you were told it would, or that you read everywhere that counselling is so great, but you don't feel any different and you feel worse, you know. That's not you. That could just be that you've not found the right avenue that is helping exactly what you need to help.
Yeah, or it's just not been long enough. And even counselling is not for everyone. It may mean that you need something else, or even like taking up a sport. Like, there might be loads of different things that you can do.
Yeah, which leads quite nicely into the next question, actually. Because I asked people what notable tips and techniques from counselling or therapy have helped with your mental health. So I'm just going to read out some of the points that people have mentioned here, because I feel like we've done plenty of talking about this already.
If we'll just sit back and listen.
So someone has said scheduling. Scheduling has helped them. They said they get overwhelmed. Having 10 things to do, they benefit from having a list and a timetable.
Yeah, I'd say that would help me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone else said taking small, incremental, voluntary steps towards overcoming anxiety. And I think we touched on this earlier in that you expect a massive thing to happen all at once, but you can't do changes that are so big because they will knock you. Yeah. You know, you have to take baby steps and recognise your progress in those baby steps, even if it's a tiny, tiny thing like, I don't know, today I sent one text to someone that I wouldn't normally do, or I did 5 minutes more of work, or
like I did I went for a walk rather than stay in bed for longer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's little steps.
I ate a meal. Even just little.
I remember to have my lunch.
Yeah. No success is too small. Reward yourself for everything.
Yeah. Completely.
Everything. Gratitude journaling is, I think, a really good thing for doing that.
Both in the morning and at night.
Yeah, and it makes you just stop and think about your day a lot more as well.
Yeah, and see the positives in it. Not saying that, toxic positivity, but we would focus on, I've had a rubbish day because I had an argument with so-and-so, but you've got 23 more hours of the day. Yeah. What good thing can you take from that?
Exactly, and even if your day was really uneventful, you can still take so much positives. The sun was shining, or I ate a nice meal, or I actually had some time to think about things today, or even I was alive today.
Yeah, because some people don't have that luxury.
Someone else said, my biggest tip was, quote, if I tell you not to do something, you'll do it more. You have to be ready to stop. I think this is almost like what we said before, in that if you're forced to do something, you just repel it. When they offered me a nap, I was like, I don't want to do a nap.
If it takes effort, you're like, no.
You have to find something that you enjoy, and you have to want it.
Yes. want to get better.
But yeah, and that falls into that same route of it's got to be the right thing for you. Yeah. Take time to think about what support you want/need. Yeah,
that's nice.
Making positive change isn't a comfortable process. It gets harder before it gets better, but it's worth it.
It hurts to take the layers off. It's like a snake gets rid of its skin. I can't imagine that being a comfortable process for the snake, but it's all fresh and new afterwards, and you leave that scaliness behind.
Someone else said, meditation was actually a blessing, although I didn't think so at the time. And I completely get that, because when you think of meditation, you think of Julia Roberts sitting in, some kind of
Bali.
temple.
Yeah.
Going,
eat, pray, love.
Yes. That's what you think of. And that might not suit you. That's not to say that meditation as a whole won't work. It's just finding the right spiritual avenue.
Yeah, it's really hard to just sit with yourself as well. So I think people are just like, I'd rather, watch a video or do something else other than meditation, because it is literally sitting with yourself.
Yeah, and trying to focus your mind on
like your breath or
thing.
like a mantra.
Yeah, that's hard. I don't know about you, but my brain just goes everywhere rather than where it needs to be.
Completely.
Training that is a massive thing. I'm recognizing that what you have achieved, like even if you do it for 5 seconds, that's 5 seconds longer than you did it yesterday.
It's progress.
Yeah. Someone objectively just validating my experiences has been hugely helpful. That's the whole purpose of this, is being a reassurance that you are not alone and that there are people experiencing what you are.
It's so important, and I think when I post anything on my page about my mental health journey, just knowing that I've helped people, but then them opening up about their journey, it's so important, and it's just like really nice. I'm like, oh, I'm not alone, or really,
it's a comfort
it's massively comforting.
Yeah. We have another one. Quote, anxiety is something you are feeling. It is not a part of you.
Yes. I am feeling anxious, not I am anxious.
Yeah.
It's so important because it's a mental illness.
You're almost putting a fact on, I am this.
Yeah, and
full stop.
Like, I am is it's a powerful phrase, and people stand in the mirror and say, like, I am awesome, I am brave. Like, you can manifest stuff with that. So saying I am anxious, it's not helping you. Yeah. It's just giving it more power. Yeah. And it's like if you say I am feeling anxious, then
that's
it's like
temporary.
It'll pass.
It'll pass. Yeah. Someone said, join a social or fitness club. Dopamine.
I would agree with this. We joined a badminton club recently, and although it's difficult to kind of peel yourself off the sofa at 8 o'clock at night on a Thursday in this weather, it's lovely when you go, and we always we feel so energized, and you meet people that you wouldn't have met before.
Yeah. And
you just have to think they're all probably doing it for exactly the same reason.
Yeah.
We're not all wanting to get like a chiseled body. We just wanting to do something fun, something social, and learn new skills.
But exercise and even just leaving the house can sometimes be the biggest task when you're feeling low. And my point here now fits in with this question. In one of the biggest techniques that my college counsellor offered me was to think of my life as a line graph. And so you have a line that goes steadily through the middle, and your life will go up and down around this line like a little heartbeat monitor. Yeah. You have good days, you have bad days, but when you start to see that line drop lower than it should normally, or where your average bad day sits,
or even go higher than normal, with
recognizing that is crucial, and then taking the steps at that point to improve your mood before it gets to the point where it's unbearable and very, very difficult to deal with. If you can see it dropping, even though you really, really don't want to, you then go, okay, I'm going to go and see a friend, or I'm going to go and play some sports, and I really don't want to do it, but it's going to stop me from having that final drop into the bottom.
Yeah, you feel so much better afterwards. I know when I do yoga classes, the teacher's always like, well, you've already done the hardest part. The hardest part is getting here. Yeah. The hardest part is, turning up, being on your mat, even if you're watching it on YouTube. There's so many other things that we could have done. But just taking that little step to care for yourself is really important. Because if a friend said to you, like, oh, I'm feeling rubbish, you wouldn't think twice. You'd just be like, well, okay, let's go for a drink. Let's go play whatever. You've just got to be like your own best friend, again, in the most cliched way.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's a nice place to wrap things up, actually. Yeah.
I agree.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, and I hope that if you're listening to this as well, I hope you found some value in what we've said, because I have found this so beneficial. Being able to talk.
Yeah, it's so nice. I mean, we have great conversations anyway, but I think being able to talk about like your own mental health journey makes you reflect personally on like how far you've come. Yeah. It's really nice to hear more about like the details of your mental health and stuff.
Yeah, likewise.
There's things that I didn't know about you, and hopefully we've helped people.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode, all about therapy and seeking professional help. I hope you found some value in what we've discussed today, and I will leave you with some useful links and resources at the end of this episode should you wish for some extra support after watching. Let me tell you what we've got coming up next. In our next episode, I will be talking with Laura Tier-Jones all about hormones versus mental health. You've been listening to the Calm Within the Storm podcast with me, Sam Lyon, and today's guest, Sarah Gregson. Thank you very much for listening. See you soon. Bye. Everything can change. Even the world we live in. If you feel affected by anything we've discussed in today's episode, please know that you can find help and support from the following providers. The Samaritans are available to talk about anything that is upsetting you 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Call 116 123 for free or visit samaritans.org. National Suicide Prevention Helpline UK offers a supportive listening service to anyone struggling with suicidal thoughts. Call 0800 689 5652. They are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Or visit spuk.org.uk. Harmless work to address and overcome issues relating to self-harm and suicide. They not only offer direct support to those that self-harm, but also offer support to friends and families, as well as providing suicide bereavement support. Visit harmless.org.uk. If you would prefer not to talk, you can text SHOUT to 85258. Shout offers a 24/7 text service providing support if you are in crisis and need immediate help. Visit their website now, giveusashout.org. If you are under the age of 25, you can call The Mix on 0808 808 4994. They are open from 3 p.m. till midnight every day and offer support for a variety of challenges including mental health, drugs, money, homelessness, finding a job, breakups and more. themix.org.uk. If you're a student, you can look on the Nightline website, nightline.ac.uk, to see if your university or college offers a nighttime listening service. Nightline phone operators are all students too. If you identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual or transgender, you can call Switchboard on 0300 330 0630. They are open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day, or you can use their web chat service via their website, switchboard.lgbt. All of their phone operators identify as LGBT+. The BetterHelp app will match you to a licensed therapist. The app offers free evaluations to suit your needs and offers video, phone, live chat and messaging services. The Headspace app offers guided lessons on mindfulness, sleep, coping with stress, creating life-changing habits, and lots more.